What's up, YouTube? Jeremy back again with another podcast for the 40-hour block. I am joined today by one of my greatest friends in the Army. He just turned to be an officer. He's a great human being. As I stated, this 40-hour block podcast is about us not listening to each other and how we can all connect somehow with the struggles that we have in life. Even if you are older or you don't really know your path, you can still succeed. So, without further ado, I'm gonna bring in one of my best friends, Brandon Klinger. My dog, what's up, bro?
How are you? It's good to see you.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man.
Hey, so this is the 40-hour block podcast of my YouTube channel, man. You know, I've been telling you a little bit about it. I think you're a really good dude, man. I've known you for what?
12 years.
Freaking like almost 10 years now. And you're very successful. You have a great story because of like what you've been through. Little goth kid till now, you know what I mean? So without further ado, tell me a little bit about how you were raised and everything like that.
Starting like, how young do you want me to start?
So let's start about your childhood, dude.
All right. I was raised by my German grandmother. She got custody of me when I was about a year old. My mom was in some legal trouble and had to do some federal time. So my mom swooped in, or my grandmother swooped in and took me in and got full custody and raised me up until I was 18.
18. So your grandmother took you over from one. Was your mom or your dad in and out of your life by then, or what happened?
I have no idea who my dad is. When I asked my mom about my dad, she gave me like 3 names. It was one of these guys, but it was probably this one guy. So less than ideal situation, right? So I actually found the dude and I tracked him down. Random call on like a Tuesday. I was like, "Hey man, do you know Soraya?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, she told me that you're my dad," and he like freaked out. And long story short, we did like a DNA thing that he wasn't my dad. So back to the drawing board. My mom.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Your mom what?
Came back into the picture when I was like 6. She did 5 years. And I did like every other weekend at her house, maybe 1 week in the summer, if I remember correctly. But it was weird to like live with somebody, and like I knew she was my mom, but it's different, you know.
So expand on that. Like, how did you feel? Because I grew up without my biological mother, but I still had my father, and then he married to my stepmother when I was real young, and she basically filled the void. You know, she was really good at it.
Yeah.
So, like you, for example, though, you lived with your grandmother basically. So, like, expand on how it was without the caregiver, your mother. You know what I mean? It's different. Like how it's always pretty normal to have like not normal, but it's common nowadays without the dad. But expand on the mother.
With my grandmother, she was very structured, very formal, very strict. So, and loving too. I'll give her that. But everything was very like modular. Then I'd go to my mom's house for a weekend, and my mom just wanted to like spoil me, do whatever. Like that was like the wild weekend, and then I'd come back, I'd get in a shit ton of trouble because my attitude was wrong, and I think she tried to spoil me too much, and there was no respect there. I guess like she was trying to be the fun parent, but there was no parenting.
Okay, so 5 years into your life, that's when your mother came in. And like, how was your grandmother strict? Like you say, very modular, but like expand on like what would she make you do? Like, hey, you gotta have your bed made by a certain time, or what is it, dude? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Like everything was time oriented. Like dinner was at 5 o'clock every day. Bedtime was at 9. Chores, like you said, the bed had to be made. The room had to be clean.
Yeah.
These things that I naturally fell into with my children, and now that my kids are almost out of the house, I'm like, dang, I was too hard on them, you know.
Okay, we're not gonna go that far yet. Okay, so like with your mother, dude, like so okay, so you're 6 years old here. Growing up, let's talk about like can we talk about those issues that we talked about?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Something I don't want to talk about, and I'll just,
so expand you started because I don't really know how to bring it up. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so the reason my mom did time, she's been addicted to drugs probably from her teens, um, and then that drug use continued on throughout the pregnancy, um, and then ultimately the federal case was drug related. So when she got out, she should have been like rehabilitated. Don't get me wrong, I love my mom. There's like struggles there. She should have been rehabilitated, but she fell right back into the same lifestyle. So the
Right.
weekend, in the moment, I didn't realize that, there were drugs involved. But now that I'm older and I'm more experienced, looking back, I realize that there are definitely a lot of drugs involved in my presence. Like, I was just not keen to it.
So how did that affect you, like as a teenager? Now that, like, I'm pretty sure you knew at like a teenager, there was
Oh yeah,
drugs around you, and so let's talk about that little downward spiral that you went into until you had your son. You know what I mean?
sure. So between her and my uncle came and lived with us, with me and my grandmother. I think he moved in when I was 13. He was like the only father figure, I guess, and he was on drugs too. So knowing that they were both on drugs and that they were, I don't want to say successful, but they were living, a decent life, I thought it minimized the damages of drug use, and it made it almost okay in my eyes. So naturally, I went down that path and started doing drugs as well.
And how old were you around this time?
I started when I was 13.
13. Oh wow, dude. And how so like how does it so from 13, so let's talk about 13 to 16. Let's talk about 13 to 16.
Yeah,
How did the drugs affect your life and going from there? You know what I mean? Because I know you talked about you were addicted to this life.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's talk about how the drugs influenced you to be like that.
Um, so 13 to 16, it was still, let's say, even up until the early 20s, it was like a party atmosphere. It was fun. It, like sex, drugs, rock and roll, right? So I was
Yeah.
introduced to heavy metal in my early teens. My
This
grandmother,
this
very
top
strong.
hat clinger, right?
What's that?
This top hat
Yeah,
clinger, right?
I can send you that photo. No, so my grandmother was very strict. I listened to like Elvis until I was like 10. Like, she had me very focused on a particular um, style, I guess. I don't know how to put it into words. Um, but then my uncle moved in and it was like ACDC and like women, and like my eyes got this big and I was like, I want like um, and it was fun. I was still going to school, still pulling good grades. But nights and weekends, like, I would dabble in things, and it was a good time.
Sounds like fast cars and freedom, dude. That's what it sounds like. Um, so how old were you when you had your son, dude?
My son was born the day after my 18th birthday.
Okay, and at this time, were you still doing drugs or?
Oh yeah, the drugs were getting like heavier, more serious drugs.
But why?
Because
It could
pots,
just be because you were 18, dude. You know what I mean? Like you can't just.
the people I was hanging out with, like, it's a slippery slope. Like pot, everyone smokes pot, whatever. But it truly is a gateway drug because you're told from early on in life that pot is terrible, never touch it, devil's lettuce, so on. And then you do it, and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. If that wasn't that bad, then X, Y, and Z aren't going to be that bad either. So it kind of sets you up for failure.
Right. So basically, what you're saying is don't get into pot.
And don't do drugs.
Okay, so 18, you just had your first kid. Drugs are heavy. Like, are you working? Like, what are you doing? You're just
Yeah.
like, dude, I'm gonna be freaking just drug clinger, or what are you doing?
Um, So I'm gonna back up just a bit. My junior year in high school, I passed one class, so I was set to not graduate high school after that. Um, my senior year, I had a counselor that was like, "Hey, man, there's this questionable program after school in the mall where you do online classes, and we can get you to caught up to graduate." Um, so I did that. I would
Yep.
actually get off from normal school, do drugs outside of school, and then go to the mall and do online classes for like 4 hours, 5 hours.
Dude, I don't mean to laugh, but this is so crazy how like society has adapted to nowadays, dude. They would not be doing like these questionable classes by the mall, dude. It's
No,
like,
no, it was totally different.
man. So okay, so you did the junior, okay, but let's talk about like 18-year-old Brandon. Let's talk about like, hey, you just had your first kid.
Yep.
Did you get married yet?
No.
Okay, so you just had your first kid. You're still into the drugs. Like, what did you do? Did you work? Did you find these weird jobs or what?
Yeah, there was a point where at 18, after I graduated, I was working 3 jobs. I was doing weekends at a gas station, working the week at a movie theater, and then
Mhm.
selling knives door to door.
Oh, like Cutco.
Cutco, I worked for Cutco, dude.
Dude, I bought some Cutco knives and they're great.
They are
Yeah.
great.
And then how long did you do this for? This 3 job rotation thing. You don't need to expand on the jobs, but just how long did you do the 3 job thing?
For a year. And then I had a buddy that worked in a metal processing plant. So we would powder coat anything and everything, mostly industrial items. And I did that for 3 years. Um, got fired. And then
Why?
because I decided to take an EMT class in the evening, my boss said that it showed that I was no longer dedicated to the company and he let me
Sounds like capitalism. I like it.
go.
Uh, so you're 21-ish around this time.
That's when my daughter was born.
Oh, okay, okay. That's what I was just gonna get into, man. I'm not gonna bring up too much because we already talked about why. But
Yeah.
so you're 21 years old. You're still doing the EMT course. How did you get another job, or what happened?
Um,
You got 2 kids support, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the companies that would bring us packaging supplies like foam to wrap the metal in, I got to know one of their drivers well because they deliver once a week. Um, and I just went over to their warehouse and I was like, hey, so powder coating just fired me. Are you guys hiring? And it was like perfect storm. I'd only been unemployed for like 3 days and I had a new job.
Hey, so let's expand on this, dude. Like, okay, so you're working hard, man. You got 2 kids.
Mhm.
You're a woman to support. Um, you're not living with anybody. Are you guys living on your own, just the family?
Yeah, so I moved out 3 months after turning 18 and never looked back.
Okay, so but like, what kind of environment did you have your kids in?
Originally, it was 1 bedroom apartment. Did
Hmm.
that year, and then got a 2 bedroom townhouse. And there was a period of time shortly after my daughter was born, maybe 6 months, where me and their mother split.
Hmm.
So for about 6 months, I had the kids during the week, and she had them on the weekends. And I lived in a 1 bedroom apartment, and we decided to get back together and try it again. And all 4 of us remained in a 1 bedroom apartment for about a year and a half.
Yeah. So okay, cool, man. That's pretty, man. That's pretty tough life so far as a 20. What time? How old are you? Like 22 years old by this time?
Like 2 year.
Yeah. I mean, all the drugs, the freaking kids at a young age. You don't have a good solid career. Good thing medical healthcare wasn't like so freaking harsh. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Dude, for real, man, because that stuff's like what, like if you just pay the fine at the end of the year, you're gonna be paying cheaper instead of being on government healthcare. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
that's a lot, man. And so were you still doing drugs at this time or no?
Oh yeah,
You were.
yeah. It was around
So like,
when
when
everybody
did
came
go,
together back into the apartment. That's when the use would probably spiraled, like or became more, and I got involved with bad people doing bad things, like easy money. If that makes sense.
and you're like what, 23 right now?
22. 22, 23, yeah, that ballpark.
22, 23. And so these bad people, man, they influence you to do worse things.
Yeah.
And like you woke up like because you joined the army like at 24, I think. So you woke up like how did you wake up out of this chemical thing that's going on in your body?
Like the money and the lifestyle, it's very addictive, and then obviously the compounds in themselves are addictive. But there's one particular morning where both of my children were sick. I'll say morning because that's when it took place. But they'd been sick for like 3 days, and then they both had like the whooping cough, super sick.
Well, how old is your son and your daughter at this time?
4 and 1.
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
And I couldn't take them to the doctor. I didn't have health insurance, right? And then I was like, they need like some cough syrup, some over-the-counter stuff. But I'd already spent all my money on other things. So I was like, I was literally counting change out of the couch and out of the car at 3 in the morning to go buy them over-the-counter cough medicine. And that moment, like, it just ate me up. And the next week, I was on Google. What can I do with an EMT license, right? And the Army popped up.
Dude, that is like a very, that is a humbling experience you just talked about, dude. Like, and I think people don't realize the lengths you're really willing to go to for your kids, dude. Like you knew that you had this dependence on something, and man, it chokes me up thinking about it, dude. Because like you really made a sacrifice right there, and people are just gonna think like, oh man, it's just the military. Fuck this, who cares? But like we know, dude. Like we know like how much of a sacrifice it really is, dude. You know what I mean? And at the time, you're like, this is gonna get me out of it, right? So, but yeah, you picked the Army, but you also told me you went to the Air Force first.
I did. Before we go into that, I want to elaborate that in high school, I was like the punk rock kid, the gothic, whatever, who hated the government and hated the military. So,
dude, Rage Against the Machine, dude.
Yeah, 100%, right? So to see that is ultimately that's how big of a sacrifice. I sold out to my core beliefs, to ensure that the kids had healthcare.
Dude, this is top hat clinger.
Yeah, top hat clinger.
Ear gauge, freaking this thing. What is this thing called?
The bridge.
The bridge, yeah, dude. This is freaking makeup clinger. This is him, dude. Right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a story, but I'm gonna bring it up later because I remember this story when we were like younger. But it's kind of funny. But let me write it down before I forget. That's what I'm looking at as my notes. I'm not ignoring you. So we're in the Air Force right now. Like, okay, we're not in the Air Force, but you're like, hey, the military is calling my name on Google.
Yeah. So the Army popped up, and I was like, well, if the Army has medics, I don't want to be in the Army. I want to be in the Air Force, the easy life, right?
So, well, why did you say that? Like, why did you say that? How do you know that the Army wasn't easy?
Because my grandfather was in the Army and the Air Force. So he got out of the Army and joined the Air Force, and my grandmother always told me that the Air Force life was better. That you're supposed to only in the Air Force, and the Army doesn't care if you're married or have kids.
Man, that's a good foreshadowing right there. So go ahead, though. Go ahead, dude. So what happened with the Air Force? You went to the Air Force recruiter. What year is this? What year is this?
Oh, no, 2010-ish.
Still junior in high school. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, bro. So the recruiter gave me a checklist of things that I needed to do. Like I needed to get my ears sewn up because, as you said, they were like, I had big knockers, right? I had a juvenile criminal record, and I had to like petition the judge and the courts to expunge my record. There were probably 3 or 4 things. Those were the heavy hitters. So I jumped through these hoops, and this is 2008. I was in a rush to get in before Delilah was born because I didn't want to pay the medical bills, if that makes sense. So I drop off my packet, and he's like, yeah, dude, I'll file this. I'll get it done. Come back in a couple weeks. I was like, okay. So I came back. We're getting close to Lila's birth. I just want to be sworn in so that, I had TRICARE. And the dude wasn't there. They're like, why don't you come back tomorrow? So I was like, okay. This went on for a couple of days. And then what I now understand is their first sergeant at the recruiting station, he's like, hey, yeah, he's on leave. He took 30 days of leave this summer. And I was like, what does that mean? Oh, he's on a month. He has a month off. I was like, okay, can you check to see if he processed my packet? And he was like, I don't have access to his files, whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. So
Dude, that is such a military fucking answer.
So 30 days later, I show up and the dude's there. And he's like, hey, what's up, man? And I was like, hey, am I good to ship? Like, my daughter's going to be born in 3 weeks. And he's like, he's like looking around his desk. And in a file folder in his desk, he has my whole packet. He never submitted it. So, old Klinger, I was like, what the fuck?
Dude, you can cuss on this, dude. It's YouTube.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I got loud and aggressive. He stayed in his seat, but the other two guys escorted me out. I was pissed, man. Like, I felt hurt and offended. I had everything in this one basket, and the guy failed me. And the next day, the first sergeant called me directly. And he's like, hey, man, just so you know, you've been red listed in the state of Colorado. And I was like, I don't understand what that means. He's like, you can't be recruited out of Colorado.
Just for the Air Force?
Just for the Air Force.
Yeah, dude, I think that's important right there. So you talk about how like this government clinger back in the day was like, they don't care or anything, and it's sad, and that's the whole reason why I made this podcast, because we don't listen or communicate with each other, but there's just people that don't care.
Yeah.
But if we talk about what we have, that's what I forgot to say at the beginning of this podcast, was if we just talk about each other and listen. We just need to listen. We need to listen to not respond. And nobody knows how important something is unless it's you.
It's true.
So, man, I remember I tried to join the Air Force too, and they were just being fucking dicks, dude. Like, dude, they were like, "Oh, we're only taking 3 a month," and I'm Jeremy, no fucking tattoos, Jeremy, straight out of high school.
Yeah.
And like, that's their ideal candidate right there, dude. Like, they're like, "Oh man," but anyways, so you're red listed,
which I don't even know if it's a real thing. Like, now that it's 12 years later, 14 years later, I don't know if that's a real thing, if they were just trying to get me off their books.
Yeah, they could have probably been bullshitting you, man. That's probably a real thing. But okay, so here we are. The Army comes marching along, dude. Like, you're like, hey, I'm gonna go right next door.
I went next door. I talked to the Navy, and I talked.
Was this after the incident, or what happened?
This was after.
Okay. So you're right next door. Go ahead.
I ruled out the Marines because I have visible tattoos this was back in the day, between my elbow and my wrist, and the Marines had a no tattoo policy at the time. So I went and talked to the Navy. And I was like, hey, look, I got my record expunged. I got my ears closed up. Like, can you guys take me? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And the Army said the same thing. So I went home and I talked to the family. I was like, I had no idea what I was talking about. But I said, I can join the Navy and get deployed to a boat where I'm gone for like a year, every 3 years. Or I can join the Army where I'm gone for 6 months, every 3 years. So based off of that alone, I joined the Army.
Oh, man. Dude, I know, because I was the same way. I didn't know what I was talking about. Basically, like, my dad was in the Navy and my grandfather was in the Marines, but they was like in their 80s, dude. It was like way different. It's extremely different. And even in like, this is like 2011, right? 2011 this is happening. Dude, people don't realize how a dramatic trip. So people's ideal movie of military is fucking Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
Bro, this shit was like in 93, dude. Like, from 93 to like 2011, people don't realize how bad of a difference is. Even from the surge in 03, dude. Like, that 8-year change is crazy,
Then that movie came out, The Hurt Locker, and that's what I was basing everything off of. Like, EOD is going to go out in a one-man team, and get pinned down.
That movie is fucking terrible, dude.
But that's what people thought. like outside of the military, that's what they thought was going on in Iraq. So
Yeah. So okay, so your kids, how old are your kids right now?
18, 15, and
No,
7.
no, 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 no. During this time period. During this
Oh,
time period.
7 and 4.
Hold on, my math is fucked up a little bit. Okay, so because you tried to join the military because your daughter was gonna be born.
Yeah. So that was my
But
original try was in
oh,
2008.
09. 08, 09. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so she was born already. You got screwed with the medical bills. All right.
Yep.
So this is 2011. You already have the EMT license, so automatically you're gonna be a medic, dude. Right.
Yep.
And how did you feel going through basic at 24 years old?
Like I was the old dude, you know.
I don't know if you watched my last podcast. My friend was like 32 when he joined the military too.
Dude, so you know Christian McKenzie. He was in basic with me, and he was like the only dude that was older than me. So I think he was about 30 at around that time.
Right.
So we were just teamed up as the old guys.
24 is not that old, man. I'd be 24 again. But anyways, so you felt older. You went through AIT. I'm not gonna really expand on AIT because it's changed a lot. I don't care. They're not as gritty as we are, you know. They're not as gritty, you know, because you trained them just recently. So you're at your last week of AIT. You're in. I think you're in Bravo Company because I was in Charlie, and the last week. When you got your orders? Like it said Fort Bliss.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
I was disappointed.
Hey, you know what? That's not the only time you're gonna be disappointed in the Army. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so you're Fort Bliss, and what month is this?
August. We graduated in August.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, so go ahead. All right. So you got Fort Bliss orders.
Yep.
And you're like, how did you feel? Like you went home, told the family, like, because you don't have your family right now. You're in the barracks, so you flew back right to Colorado to get them.
They were living in Florida at the time.
Oh, Florida. Okay.
I moved them down to Florida, so they had like her sister lived down there. That way they had like support during my 8-month indoctrination into the military.
Okay. Okay. And then so you guys get to Fort Bliss.
Yep.
I'm laughing because of all the stories we went through together, man. It fucking sucked. It sucked, dude. So like, okay, so this is the beginning of September, right?
Yeah.
Beginning of September. So you got there at a good time. You got to go to BCT3.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say what it is because fucking people. And I was still at AIT in September. So you went to BC. Why? So when you first got to the unit, let's go ahead and preface here. Like you went to BCT3 because why?
So no shit. When I reported, I showed up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to in processing, and the guy said, "Oh, 136. Have you heard the good news?" And I said, "What good news, Sergeant?" Like snapping at right rest. And he was like, "You guys are deploying. You're going to be gone in 2 months." And I was like, I joined the Army to like do blood pressure measuring at like a clinic or just doing vitals in the hospital. I did not want to go there. Like I wasn't built for it. And to know that not only was I going to the infantry, but I was going to be in Afghanistan in 2 months was very scary.
Yeah, it's people don't. Honestly, social media really hypes it up, man, because everybody wants to be like these sexy Green Berets and Navy SEALs and shit. But being like in the middle, well, now the social media can show you all the freaking how Afghanistan and everything is at the time. But like back then, it was a terrifying experience, especially for me. Like I was 18 years old, straight out of high school, dude.
Yeah, man.
And I got to the unit, dude. Okay, so I'm the same way like you, man. I get Fort Bliss on my orders. I'm like, sweet, badass. It's El Paso. I want to San Antonio, but it's never gonna happen. But I'm driving, dude, and then I get to Fort Bliss, and I remember processing. They're like, "Hey, y'all are deploying to Afghanistan in 3 months," and I'm like, "Oh shit!" I'm like, but they're like, "Oh, you don't have a unit yet, right?" So the battalion is closed down because this is after hours. I got there like at I don't know I think it was like 5:30. And so they're like, okay, well, here's your meal card or whatever. I look at my orders, I don't know anything, dude. I just see. So I Google it. I Google what the unit is, and it's a tank unit, right? At the time, right? And then I'm like, oh, sweet. So I call my dad, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm gonna be in the back of a tank, dude, fucking doing nothing. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna be there with a fucking full ranking officer. I'm gonna be straight, dude. Like, I'm gonna be good, right? And then let's talk about. We're not here talking about me though, but we're here to talk about you. So like you go to BCT3, right, to get prepared for the deployment. People don't realize that prepares you.
Yeah.
I would not say it prepares. See, this is the problem. The training or anything only gives you the tools for what you're gonna use.
Yeah.
It's up to you to respond that way.
Yeah.
Right. So I always tell people, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to your level of training.
I like that.
And I 100% believe in it, and I've seen it multiple times, and I still believe to this day. You might, because you're a PA now, you might fucking argue with me. I still believe like emergency medicine is like basic shit will save lives faster. And so you went to BCT3 to get ready for the deployment. Because I remember we went on block leave. I'm trying to expand. I'm trying to grow to leaving in December. That's why I'm talking so much. Actually, let's back it up. When we met each other, dude. All right, let's talk about when we met each other. It was around September, and you just came back from BCT3.
Yep.
How did you feel when you met me?
I was like, man, this is my soulmate.
Dude, because we were getting hazed left and right, dude, right?
Yeah, they pushed their shit in pretty good.
Dude, hey, you have to earn this piece of paper. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh.
Dude, that shit sucked. Okay, so let's go ahead and fast forward. Let's fast forward on that. You lead a Bravo company.
Yeah, I went to Bravo.
And I was so brokenhearted, man, because we were so tight. Yeah. And I was like, and I had to stay in HAC. I was like, fuck, this sucks. So, anyways, how did you feel when you went to Bravo company for the first time?
So I don't know if you remember the line medic that was there as a shitbag, and he had like testicular pain that was fake. You got to have the deployment.
Oh, dude, I remember. I don't want to say his name out loud though. Yeah. Fuck it, I'll say his name.
So one random day we were at the COF, and the NCOs like brought all of us out. I don't think you were there. Maybe you were. I don't know. Brought all of the Joes out, and they made us do like an impromptu trauma lane.
I remember.
Yeah. And I smoked it. And immediately after, I think it was Wilcox was like, "Congratulations, you're headed to Bravo." And I was like, "What does that mean?" No. I don't want to go to the infantry. Like that's deeper into it. That's not just support of you're with those guys. So I mentally fought with it a little bit. The next day I went out and supported their range and hung out with their NCOs a little bit. And they were cool. Like the image of infantry that I had in my head from growing up around Colorado Springs, where there's like a lot of toxic military people. I was like, man, this is gonna be a bunch of douchebags, but they're all really, really fucking cool. And then there was like a sense of honor or pride to be there for them, to be trusted as their person.
Yeah, dude, it's I think that me and you specifically had a very. It's unique because even when I was later on in my Army career, I had a bunch of guys wishing they did what we did. Fucking straight out of AIT, straight to the line. You go to a hard place in Afghanistan. It's not just fucking CAF or Azazula. You know what I mean? Like we're actually doing fucking hood rat shit.
Yeah.
And you don't have to talk about it because you already know in your head you were about it that time.
Yeah.
And I a lot of people were always like, "Man, I wish I had that," and I'm like, "I wish you did too," but So, all right, dude. So now we're leaving to Afghanistan. It's December. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So how was it like we're with the family and stuff?
I'd already been gone for 8 months. I came back, and I think I reported the first week of September. Regardless, I had only been home for 6 or 7 weeks before it was like time to start packing to leave. So I hadn't like fully integrated yet, and that time goes by so fast. Um, so I like took the time to build my will and brief the family as much as possible. Like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I don't know what the resources are going to be. If you're even going to be able to see me, like maybe we're only going to have phone calls. Like, just going through all of these things with the family. Um, I tried to do it to prepare them, but I think it scared them more than anything.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough conversation to have, and I think that's what the military does is make you have those tough conversations.
Yeah.
It does, and they can't prepare you for it. So we're not going to get into the deployment too much because it's our own opinions and how we feel and everything like that. So I'm not going to get into it too much. Um, so let's talk about this. Is already 3 years down the road, dude. Like you already know me 4 years at this point, and you're leaving to Alaska,
Yeah.
and you left, right? And so I hit you up. I'm like, hey, what's Alaska like? And then you're like, dude, you should come, Mr. Influential.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to Alaska. And we're not going to talk too much about all this stuff, dude. And I know you had an interesting career there as a flight medic and everything like that. So if anybody's watching this video, you want to talk to him, he's going to have his socials on here. So let's talk about this hard point in your life right here. Your kids are teenagers. You come back from this deployment with as a flight medic,
Mhm.
and your whole like your life is literally about to change right now.
Yeah.
And can you expand on why it was going to or no?
Yeah. Yeah. I can. So it was like a perfect storm, a bunch of different things that came to a head at once. The first deployment, there were some very traumatic moments. Never really sought care, never talked about them, never opened up. Um, the culture in our medic platoon, um, like there was no such thing as PTSD. You're just being a bitch, so I fed into it. Going to my second deployment, I saw a lot more trauma, but I didn't know any of the people. Whereas the first deployment, it wasn't a whole lot of trauma, but I knew people.
Which is probably worse.
It is probably worse.
Yeah.
But the second one made it like ripped the scab off of a bunch of shit that wasn't healed yet. And then in Bagram, I was like the top dog. Like I was the lead flight medic. I was organizing all this training for people in the hospital and like things that had not been done before. I was doing, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I was respected by everybody and looked up to, and it was a great environment. So you go from doing that one day, and then 5 days later, you're sitting on your couch, and you're like, "This fucking sucks. Like I'd rather be deployed, right? I want to be the hero."
Yeah.
Um,
Sense of purpose, dude.
it is a purpose. And then there's things. My first marriage wasn't healthy at all. Um, I don't want to talk shit or throw mud, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
there were activities that were going on that I couldn't stand by and just like watch anymore. So me being fed up, depressed, PTSD, and then having a partner that wasn't as dedicated, I guess. It was just too much, and I knew that if I didn't leave, that my life would be over. So,
Like over as in what?
there's a period there where I was very suicidal.
Yeah. Think I feel for you because I know exactly how you feel, and you know that because we've known each other for so long. And shit, dude. I mean, how many times have I fucking went overweight because I was depressed eating so much? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's a hard pill to swallow. And I always say this about the army: they teach you to go to war, but they don't teach you to come back.
How to come back.
And it's hard, man, because I know that feeling of like suicidal and your lack of purpose and meaning in life, dude. Especially, dude, like especially when you have so many people that like you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, man. It's rough, man. I know. I know people right now they're 30 years old, 32 years old, in their late 20s, and they're going through the same shit because this is the problem too with society. You see social media and shit, and you're like, hey, my life is supposed to be like that, and you don't realize what the fuck we went through to get to this point. And it ain't just like, hey, you turn on the damn phone and it's that hard. So don't compare yourself to me,
Yeah.
you know? And that's what I want you to do is not compare yourself to me.
Mm-hmm.
I can help you. You can get advice or anything like that. But ultimately, you got to change you.
100%.
So, yeah. All right, dude. So we're not going to get too much more into this stuff. So you went to Germany and then you went to PA school. Now you're you're an officer and you're a PA. Great. Congratulations, man. It's a
Thank you.
big achievement. It's a big achievement. People don't, I say great, like, oh, fuck. But people don't realize like how hard it was. I've only known I think I know 3 people that went through the Army PA program that I personally grew up in the Army with.
Yeah.
So it's definitely hard. And as I stated, if people want to know, you can reach out to him. I'll put his links in the description. All right, so let's move on to what what are you currently doing with your life besides the Army? Like, what makes? Remember we talked about this. What makes Brandon happy?
So I'm still learning. The PA program was very intense, and I didn't have a life for about 3 years. um, all of my training concluded in January, so I'm starting to find hobbies again. But I'm also in processing and I'm learning my job. Currently, I scheduled one day out of the week for like family things. Like today, we uh, went down to Southern Pines and tried a new restaurant and just getting us out of the house and doing experiences. Um, I started reading books for fun, leisure reading, which I haven't done in 3 years. And I have like 5 dogs that keep me pretty busy. And
Damn,
then
dude.
if I can slip out, I'll take the bike for a couple miles,
Yeah,
Harley.
I think people need to realize that too. It's just life is not just work, you know. And I didn't mention in this that you're remarried and everything like that. So
Yeah.
I know we just talked about something. I called you and I talked to you about this. So this is important to bring up right now because you know that I was raised believing in God, Catholic, and you're a Satanist,
I,
and this just shows right here that like you don't have to agree on everything, and you can still be friends and cordial. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about being a Satanist because there's also a thing I want to bring up. It's about a Ouija board. So go ahead.
hey, so there's a huge misconception that satanic people actually like worship the devil and like sacrifice sheep and what have you, do these rituals, and the modern Satanist does none of those. The Satanist believes in themselves, like the highest power is not this God being. You are the God, you are the highest power. So the energy that one would usually put into going to church and worshiping this idol, you put into yourself, and you believing in yourself as opposed to a God, your true belief in yourself, you can accomplish just as much, if not more, than an individual that is putting that energy towards God.
You know, I didn't even know that, dude. I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought you guys believed in Satan. I didn't.
No,
I knew you guys didn't sacrifice the goats or the dogs or the babies or whatever. But I literally was just like, oh, they just go to the freaking church and they're like, all right, let's hail Satan. And but can we talk about how there's a difference between like Satanist, was it Church of Satan and like
yeah.
Luciferian, right? There's like 3 different things, right?
So yeah, so Anton LaVey was the very first like published, well-known Satanist, and his stuff was kind of dark. It was like black magic. Again, you're using your energy to acquire things or people, or its manifestation. Modern day, you have the uh, Satanic Temple, and what their purpose is religious equality. So if somebody erects like the 10 Commandments in a public space, they'll erect a satanic um, entity next to it, just to show that in America we do have equal rights.
Hey, I mean, it's part of the Constitution, man. I believe in the Constitution, so I don't care, man. You don't bother me. So we don't even bring it up. Like we
We
don't
don't.
ever bring it up. Yeah, I think I've brought it up to you like twice, and it was never like we fought or anything about it. So I feel like people just need to listen. They don't need to respond. They don't need to listen to respond. They just need to listen.
Just listen.
Yeah. All right, dude. Let's talk about a 5-year goal, or what's next for Mr. Klinger.
Um, so in 5 years, I'll be nearing conclusion in the military.
Hmm.
Um, I'm hoping. I'm trying to stack the cards so that after this 3 year stint in my current unit, we PCS back to Europe. And then there are several countries that recognize PAs. So the idea is to prepare for retirement in Europe and transition into their civilian healthcare market. In doing so, you have to apply for citizenship, and the two countries I'm looking at now, it's a lengthy process. They don't. It's not like America where they take anybody.
That's his own opinion.
So in 5 years, I'll be preparing for that.
I couldn't live anywhere but America, but I thought about it, dude, like Panama or Roatan. You know what I mean? But anyways, all right. So we're ending this podcast. We're getting close to the end of it. I always like to end with certain things. So let's talk about some man advice. Give me some man advice.
Um, so marriage wise,
No,
something that
no,
I
we're not. We're doing man, not husband yet.
oh man
Man,
advice.
man, man, man. Like me, like dude to dude.
Yeah,
You seen a weak guy or whatever. You know what I mean?
lift heavy and eat beef. I don't know, dude. I sent you something.
I know.
Um,
What did you write here?
I don't know.
You said you're gonna have the perfect thing when it gets to this point. That's what you said.
Oh, well, I guess it's lift heavy and eat protein. I don't know.
All right, that's good. That's good. All right, so let's talk about dad. You got two kids, and then you inherited one.
Yes, I have 2.5.
So let's talk about being a dad, dude, especially a young dad, and then now you're to this point.
Dude, it's tough. Being a young dad, I started off being the fun dad. Like I was still a kid myself, so like playing with the kids it was easy. But then there was a point where I had to become authoritative, and I think I swung too hard in that direction, um, and I probably ruined a couple of years there where I was trying to, even though there was a co-parent in the same house, I was doing too much of the authoritative role. It wasn't fair for me or them. So if there are people out there that are in the same situation, like don't be too hard on your kids. They're only in your house for 18 years. It goes by quick.
That's sad, dude. All right, so there. Let's talk about your husband advice, dude. Marriage and all that shit that you just wanted to bring up early.
Oh, I'm excited, dude, because I'm in a good marriage. I think what I had heard maybe 2 months ago was you got to keep the main thing the main thing. Um, as a man, you have your partner. You should be your wife, your spouse, and everything else in your life will be easier if you guys are level. So keep her the main thing.
It's good, man. Never stop being a couple, right?
Yep. Go on dates.
Yep. Okay, so now we're ending it. Tell us where people can find you.
Instagram. That's probably the easiest. The handle is the period cling period Kong. The cling Kong.
And then that's where everybody can reach out to them if they have like any of that PA program stuff or whatever. If they want to, hey man, I just want to vent to you because like, hey, I kind of know what's it's going through the same thing or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, man. So do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. So first deployment, right? We went through some.
Uh-huh.
I know you don't want to talk about it. We went through some pretty tough shit. How? Like, I just requested a therapist for the first time in my adult life. And I'm a little apprehensive about it. I'm not ready. How have you, or how do you cope with what we went through?
Yeah, so it's been about 5 years when I really wanted to talk about it to people. And I say that because I feel if you just keep that shit bottled up, it's going to eat inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been through like how many therapists? I've probably been through about 8 therapists, fucking like 4 psychiatrists, multiple different like counselors and everything like that. And I've tried even like the religious route. And I think the thing that I've come to realize for myself is that there's literally nothing you can do. And I say that as in when people die, there's whoever you believe in. If you believe in yourself, you believe in God, whatever. Someone wrote that number, and like us during that time, like even probably when you were flying, many people all think, "Oh, we got this God complex. We can save anybody."
You can't.
But there's really just you can't, man, and it's not your fault. It really, truly is not your fault. And I feel like once I realized that it's not my fault, it doesn't mean that I don't get sad or I don't think about it. It's just it's hard to realize that it's not your fault.
Yeah.
And therapists, dude, I feel like it's good to have somebody there. You got to find the right one, man. Like just recently, I found probably the best counselor, and she's awesome. She's great. She doesn't do the typical therapist shit, which I hate. And that's hard to find, especially with the military, because I'm not gonna say anything, but they just get people in and they want to get people out.
Yeah.
So you have to find the right counselor, and if you've got to shop around, you got to shop around.
Okay.
So, and I hope you do find somewhat. I would not say peace, but how to manage it better.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. It really truly is, and it's better when you realize that it's just not your fault. So,
it's solid.
And then I got your other question here about describing happiness and success. I don't know how to describe success yet, and I've been thinking about it, been struggling about it. Happiness, though, I truly feel like I'm truly happy finally. My wife is great. My kid is awesome. I have more time at home. I already told you about my career and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I think that truly finding your happy place is not worrying about little shit. And then I feel like also you need to mind your own fucking business, dude.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people just want to get in people's lives, and that shit will kill you, dude.
Yeah.
So success, though, I'll get back to you on that, though, man. I don't know if truly successful. People are gonna be like, "Oh, you have nothing. You could buy something, not worry about it." But I do that right now, and I'm not even worried about it. But I don't know if that's truly successful.
Yeah. I think I've had successful moments or successful accomplishments, like going from junkie to PA. That's successful, but do I consider myself a success? Not yet. Like there's still more to come,
Exactly. That makes a lot of sense, dude. Yeah, because I went from this fucking dumb kid to now I'm like this and I'm happy. So, I mean, all right, dude. Well, I really appreciate this podcast. Thank you so much for joining, and I will talk to you later, bro.
All right, man. I love you.
Love you later.
Yeah.
All right. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and comment. Share this content. And if you think you should be on the podcast, if you want to get your story out, please send me a message. We'll catch you later.